Welcome to another episode of Angling Wisdom. I'm your host, Patrick Edwards. It's great to have you back on the show again. And today I'm going to go over a question that I get a lot, which is, what is your go-to for walleye during the summer and into the fall? So I just figured, why not just come up with my top 5, and we'll talk about what I use from summer all the way through the end of fall right before ice up. So stick around. Welcome to the Angling Wisdom Podcast, the freshwater fishing podcast for multi-species anglers.
I've known Patrick for quite a few years, and there are a lot of people out there. It's an ego-driven industry. It's all about them. To find somebody that really wants to go find anglers for all different species, to bring them in, to give everybody a voice. This is the difference between what Patrick's doing and a lot of other shows. Is there's only a special few out there.
I have a very special guest all the way from Wapiti, Wyoming.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Jim Zumbo. It's nice to actually spend 2.5 days fishing.
With a master angler like you, are you kidding me? This is a real treat.
Get ready for the culmination of angling wisdom and fun. I'm your host, Patrick Edwards, and this is the Angling Wisdom Podcast.
All right. So we're going to talk about the lures that I use, the 5 top lures from summer all the way through the fall fishing season. And those of you who followed me for a while are probably not going to be super surprised, but I want to take you through not just the kind of lures, but the type of lures that I'm using. And then I'll talk about how I fish them. So let's start with right now. It is July. It is hot. And it is miserable sometimes when you're out on the water. That's why you typically get out there really early, or maybe you go really late in the evening. Maybe you're night fishing. But during the day, if you happen to be out there, so as soon as the sun comes up and you're going out, and if you have to cover a lot of water, I'm going to start with number 5. And this lure has produced for me many times. I've talked about it on this show. This is PK Lures Baby Bass, the PK Ridgeline crankbait, but baby bass is the color. And this one, in my part of the world, seems to work really well here in Wyoming, from Keyhole to Boysen. It doesn't really matter where I take it, I catch a lot of fish. This one does kind of look like a rainbow trout, or I guess a baby bass in some ways. It's got a little bit of pink. You can see the different colors on there. Looks like I've still got a little bit of moss on there too. But this one has been a big time producer for me. And I will tell you, if you have to cover water and try to find fish, or if the fish are suspended, this is an absolute must have in your tackle box, because it's really easy to long line troll this behind a boat. You can cast this from shore. Now, do keep in mind, this is a sinking crankbait. So if you cast it out from the shore, you better get cranking if it's not super deep. But the nice thing is, if it does drop off really far and you want to get down deep, you absolutely can with this bait. Or if you want to pause your trolling and you just kind of put it in neutral, let them sink for a little bit, and then continue on, you can certainly do that. But the PK Ridgeline crankbait has been a very reliable one for me. But this style of bait, whether it's a PK Ridgeline or a Berkeley Flicker Shad, they work really, really well in the summer, and they catch a lot of fish all the way through the fall. So this one is a top producer, especially June, July, August, September, all the way into November. So if you don't have some of these, I highly recommend that you get some of these crankbaits to pull behind your boat, because these are fabulous. You'll notice that when I'm fishing on Keyhole or Boysen, I always have a box of these sitting around. All right, so one of the things about that is, if you are going to do trolling, long lining, you're probably going to want some planer boards. I do have an episode that kind of talks about how to use planer boards. But if you're going to troll behind the boat, it's really important. Try not to get your lines crossed. If you are going to troll these, you want to go an appropriate speed, which for me is typically 2 to 3 miles an hour. Most of the time I'm doing like 2.3 to 2.5. And another thing to note is, when I'm navigating the boat, I tend to do like an S pattern. The reason for that is, when you do that, you cover a little bit of water kind of in a meandering way, but also the bait will speed up when it hits the turn, and then when you start to turn the other way, it'll slow down. Sometimes that's what is needed to trigger these walleyes. But I will tell you, it's really deadly pattern, really effective all spring, summer, and fall long. As long as it's not hard water, you can probably use these and catch some fish. But walleye, really, really like these. I also like the purple color that they have, the blue. They all work really well. Fire Tiger. So let's move on to number 4. This one I like to fish a lot because it can be really, really fun from midsummer through the fall. But it can also be kind of exhausting to fish if you fish it correctly. And what I mean by that is this lure does take a little bit of action. You actually have to apply yourself. You have to make the lure do what you want it to do. But I have 2 different sizes here. This is the 1/2 ounce. This is the 3/8 ounce gold flutterfish. Now I do like these. One thing that I really like about them is I can fish them from shore. I can cast them really far, and they fall really slowly through the water column. And I'll use these for fall, especially, but also in the summer. You cast it out there, let it fall. The fish think it's an injured kind of bait fish or something like that. They'll come up and absolutely inhale these things. I've had them actually suck them down completely. So this is a fantastic lure option if you're going to do summer and fall fishing. Works really, really well. I've been really impressed with how these have worked for me. It doesn't matter what species I'm going after. I catch largemouth bass, smallmouth bass, walleye, every kind of trout that you can imagine on these. And it's just a really versatile lure. Now, to fish these properly, what you got to do is you got to cast them out really far, count it down a little bit. And then what I do is I'll rip the rod tip straight up really hard, all the way up, and then let it down to about here, and then rip and let it fall, and rip and let it fall. If you do that for a couple hours, you're going to feel it in your wrist and your elbow. It gets a little tiring, but there's a lot of time fighting fish too. So it's totally worth it. Another nice thing about these lures is you can actually troll them behind the boat as well. So it is nice to be able to throw this back behind the boat, especially in trout country, walleye country. You can do that. You can also jig them below the boat. So if you're in a boat, get over some fish, especially if they're a little bit deeper, drop straight down to them, let it hit the bottom, rip it off the bottom, let it come down, rip it off the bottom, let it come back down. You don't have to do huge rips either. Most of the time for walleye, you're in that 6-inch to a foot range. You don't have to make this fly super far. They'll typically come up and smoke it. But gold is a really good color here at Boysen Reservoir. That's my home body of water. Depending on where you're at, you may want to pick a whole bunch of different colors. I mean, they've got just about everything. But the metallic colors seem to work really, really well in the summer during the daytime. So copper, nickel, and gold. Those would be the ones I would say get first. But if you're in a place where there's crawfish, which I actually have a lot of crawfish in the reservoirs that I'm around, another good option is the PK spoon, and they have a crawfish color, so you can do that too. All right, so that was number 4.
Fellow anglers, it's time to up your game with PK Lures, crafted to help you catch the fish of your dreams. Whether it's the classic PK spoon, the Flutterfish, or the reliable PK Ridgeline crankbait, PK Lures has the perfect lure for any fishing scenario. No matter if you're fishing on the ice or in open water, PK Lures has a wide range of lure options to help you catch walleye, trout, panfish, and more. These aren't just lures, they're proven performers. Designed by master angler Pat O'Grady and tested by some of the best anglers in the world, they are trusted for results. From the hard water to open lakes and rivers, PK Lures delivers. Find your perfect lure today at pklure.com and use the code WISDOM for 20% off of your order.
Number 3 is old tried and true, and I talk about this because I fish it year-round with the Marabou jig. If you don't have Marabou jigs in your box, I don't know why. They are one of the most affordable baits on the market. It's just a simple round ball jig head with Marabou. This is one of my favorite colors. This is the white. The chartreuse is great as well. But they come in a whole bunch of different colors. You can go to a lot of different stores and pick up just about any color that you want. I've got links in the description for all these lures that I'm showing you. But this one is fantastic. It's a multi-species lure. It's not just a crappie jig. A lot of people think, oh, that's a crappie jig. Yeah, sure, it catches crappie, and it catches walleye and big ones, and it catches trout, and it catches everything. So Marabou jigs are fantastic. They are very versatile because you can cast them out. You can work them kind of closer to the surface. If it just barely hits the water, you start to work it. You can do it that way. You can let it work all the way at the bottom. You can kind of snap jig them along. They're a great shore fishing lure. So this is one of the most versatile lures out there. Highly recommend, no matter where you're at in the United States, Canada, fishing freshwater fish, you should have several colors of these, several sizes. This is the 1/8 ounce. This is my favorite size. It's one that I can cast fairly far on just about any of my rods, and it moves in the water column the way I want it to. Sometimes I'll go a little bit lighter with the 16th ounce, but most of the time, this is what I have tied on. Caught lots of nice fish. You can see brown trout behind me, walleyes, all kinds of different things on this lure, including really, really large walleyes. So just because this lure is small does not mean that you won't catch absolutely huge fish. I've caught some really nice bass on these as well. So this one is a must-have. I have it in the middle of the pack. Number 3 on my list of lures that you must have in your tackle box for walleyes for summer through the fall. But seriously, guys, these are like 99 cents a piece or less. You can buy them in bulk. Highly recommend. All right, now we're getting towards the bottom here. These are the ones I probably use the most often. And again, not going to be a huge shocker to anybody. This one, I'm going to put a picture up of just how much these have been getting destroyed by walleyes and humongous carp too, by the way. Massive carp hitting these. But I've caught a lot of nice walleyes on this particular setup right here. So first off, the jig head itself, that is a VMC Moon Eye Jig. It is my favorite by far for casting swim baits, curly tails, anything like that. So the VMC Moon Eye is amazing, and I have a link in the description if you want to go get some. But attached to that is this little ripple shad. And I had a friend of mine introduce me to these again. I hadn't used them in several years. They're not exactly new, but they have a lot more colors now. And the ripple shad's great. It's made by Berkley PowerBait. Here, I have a bunch right here. And let me tell you, Berkley makes some amazing stuff. I mean, PowerBait is a part of my arsenal. I like to use, the Power Minnows, the Gulp, all their stuff. It just works. And it's not like they sponsor me or anything. I just love catching fish. And this is one of the best options that there is. There's another really cool color that I got here too. These ones are kind of orange and chartreuse, and they work really well. But they come in these nice little packs now. They used to just come loose in like a plastic package like this, but now they've got them in these molded plastic containers, and they work really well. It's funny because they have red eyes on them. You can see that there. I really don't think they make any difference whatsoever, and they just fall off. So it's a waste to me, but they do look cool to fishermen. So maybe that's why they have them on there. But those little red eyes, maybe they do something, maybe they don't. I don't know. But I know that when I'm catching fish on these, and I'll show you a picture of what a torn up one of these looks like, and the eyes are missing and the tail gets bit off, it doesn't matter. They're just looking at that minnow profile and they're hammering it. And what I like about these is you can fish this from the shore. You can fish this from a boat. It doesn't really make any difference. And this 1/8 ounce VMC Moon Eye Jig casts super far. So you can cast it way out there. You can work the bait back slow. You can work it back fast. What I personally like to do is cast it out, let it get to the bottom, rip it off the bottom, reel a little bit, rip it off the bottom, reel a little bit. You'll notice when it goes down to the bottom, the line will go down and it'll stop and it'll flatten out. So it'll kind of go slack on the surface of the water. That's when you know you got to crank up and pop it again. Most of the time when the fish hit, it's when you've just popped it off the bottom and you're letting it fall and it doesn't quite go slack on you, or you notice your line start to take off. Sometimes you'll feel a really good thump when you go to pop it off the bottom. That's because they're in the process of picking it up. I've had several fish this year. hooked them right here in the chin because they were just about to pick it up. But fantastic option. And I got to say, it's probably one of my favorite ways to catch walleyes. I like catching fish on jigs anyway because you're doing it by feel. And I think that's probably you as well. If you're a jig fisherman, you probably nodding your head like it's so much fun to catch fish that way. The other way too is, Berkley PowerBait, curly tails. These curly tails come in really handy in the summertime as well. You can just put a little piece of worm on your hook for a little bit extra scent if you want, or just fish them straight like that. Same jig head. You don't have to do anything but this Moon Eye jig head. If you don't want, you can use round ball jig heads. It doesn't really matter, but the curly tail and the paddle tail on a VMC Moon Eye jig, that's my number 2. And I've caught a ton of fish already this year doing that, and I'm not going to stop. I'm probably going to keep fishing them all the way through the fall. It's extremely effective and it's fun. So if you don't have any of these, I've got links in the description. You can go get those. I think they work phenomenally well. And again, they don't sponsor me or anything, but man, awesome lures.
For me, fishing isn't just a hobby. It's a way of life. And every angler deserves a rod as unique as their journey. That's where TB Custom Rods comes in. Handcrafted custom fishing rods built to your exact specifications. Perfectly balanced and tailored to your style. Work with Trapper and choose your design, select your components, and feel the difference of a rod made just for you. Visit tbcustomrods.com to get started on your custom rod today.
All right, number 1, and this isn't going to surprise anybody, but the category of suspending cranks. I am addicted to catching walleye on suspending cranks. This is my favorite one for the fall. It's right up there with the X-Wrap and several others, Dynamic J-Spec, but this is the Rapala Husky Jerk, and this is an HJ12, and this is the pink color, and I'll tell you what, this one has been chewed up many times and it still looks pretty decent. I had another one that I was going to show, but it looks pretty rough. It's been eaten so many times by walleyes, but these things work really well. You can cast them up off of shallow gravel bars during the summer. I like to do the twitch pause and work them really fast, especially in July and August. As the fish kind of move into the deeper water, I kind of abandon this, but come October, November, this is what I have tied on pretty much 24/7. And I just absolutely hammered walleye and sauger on this particular lure all last fall. I mean, it was insane how many fish I caught and insane how many big fish I caught on this particular lure. So suspending cranks as a category are great. A lot of the complaints you get about crankbaits and spoons and spinners is you get caught either on the bottom or in other things and you break them off. Well, the nice thing about these, especially fishing where I'm fishing in big reservoirs out here in the West, you cast out, you work the bait down and it suspends, and there's really not a whole lot to get caught on. As long as you're decent at aiming your casts, you're probably going to be okay. And so it's a great lure to use for kids, for anybody that you take fishing that's maybe a little less experienced. Kind of takes the guesswork out of it. Whereas with a jig, you kind of have to know what you're doing and you have to have the feel for it. This one, you don't as much. Some people would argue you do, but you really don't. Like if you think about it, if I'm throwing a jig and it goes down to the bottom, if I'm a beginner, I may not know the difference between a weed, a rock, or a fish. I mean, I may have no idea what the difference of the feel. Whereas with this one, and I cast out and I'm working it out in the deeper water and I feel something hit it or it hits something, it's probably a fish, right? So I always just tell people, when in doubt, set the hook, especially when you're fishing one of these, because it's probably a fish. And it's a great multi-species lure. You see bass fishermen using these, pike fishermen, trout fishermen, walleye fishermen. These things just work really, really well. If you want to go with smaller sizes, one of my favorite lures all time is the X-Wrap number 8. And I like the glass ghost, purple ghost. There's a lot of different colors that you can pick. the clown. But the X-Wrap is really great. And it's similar to this one. It's a little more erratic, and it has kind of like this kind of stuff on the tail. I guess it'd be kind of like this one, but it has a hook with some feathers and whatnot. But I'll tell you what, man, in the fall is a great option. Doesn't matter where you live in the United States or up in Canada, you're going to catch fish on suspending cranks. I mean, they are phenomenal lures. So that is my number one pick. And again, if you've been watching me for any amount of time, you're not surprised by that. But if you've waited and you've said, I don't know if I want to try those suspending cranks, they're probably not that great. That fish right behind me, that huge walleye, that was a suspending crank. They hit them, and it's a lot of fun. The fight is definitely on for big walleyes in the fall, especially on these. The great thing about suspending cranks, again, you can fish them all year long, and you catch fish all year long. Of course, not through the ice, but you can fish them in rivers, even in the wintertime. I'll do that and catch big browns too. So that's just a kind of a quick overview. But if you haven't been out walleye fishing yet and you want to get out there and you want to go catch fish, hurry up and do it. It is summer. At least here in Wyoming, it'll kind of taper off a little bit in August as it gets even hotter and we have lake turnover and all those kind of things. But boy, it picks up again in the fall, and I cannot wait to get out there and use this guy again in the fall, because it was almost unfair how well it worked. So again, thanks for watching. Thank you again to our sponsors for making this possible. I want to say a big thank you to Trapper at TB Custom Rods. If you haven't seen, I have a video out there catching a humongous carp on one of these little paddle tails, and I'm using his little 3-piece pack rod because I was just wanting to do something a little different, and I was trying to catch walleyes, and I ended up catching a massive carp. So if you haven't watched that, you got to go check it out. It was a lot of fun, and it took several minutes to get that thing in. But a big thank you to Trapper, and of course Kurt at PK Lures. Thank you so much for making this show possible for everybody. And again, you can use the code WISDOM at checkout for PK. Get yourself one of these, Ridgeline crankbaits, a few of these Flutterfish, and you can save 20% just because you watch this show. So use the code WISDOM at checkout. I hope this has been helpful. If you have other favorites that, you like to use for walleyes throughout the season, please drop them in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. And until next time, I'll see you out on the water.
Angling Wisdom has been brought to you by TB Custom Rods and PK Lures. Don't forget to subscribe to Angling Wisdom on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts so you don't miss any of our new episodes. Also, go to anglingwisdom.com for more fishing content. Until next time, I'll see you out on the water.